Howdy folks, happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Hope you are enjoying your day, even though here in Indiana it's a little rainy. But yeah, I'm going to do another collection video here, and I decided to do my top 12 favorite movies that are about dad. And so there was a little bit of rules to this list, and I wanted to show dads in a positive light, meaning that because there are a ton of movies about fathers out there or that involve fathers, and the dad is kind of portrayed as somebody that's a jerk, or he's gone from the whole family, or he's turned evil. So that means no Star Wars, guys. Sorry if I don't think Star Wars qualifies for this list, because, yeah, Darth Vader reveals, he comes clean at the end. He turns good, back to the good side, but he's mostly evil throughout the whole thing. And so, yeah, so no Star Wars, guys. So that was taken off. So this is my top 12 movies about dad. And this also involves becoming dads and divorced dads, and just you'll see throughout the list what I have here and what I've picked. And so number 12 and actually number 11, they do kind of go together because they have a similar theme to them about becoming fathers. And so number 12 is the 1988 John Hughes romantic comedy. That's what I'm just going to call it. And this is one that kind of gets looked over in terms of movies, because it's not one of John Hughes' best movies, but it's still a good film to check out nonetheless. Starring Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern. She's Having a Baby from 1988. Yeah, and it's, of course, Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern. They play this young couple who are going through, they just get married and they start going through the troubles of married life. And there's one thing missing. You guess it, the child. And so, and the whole thing is done through kind of Kevin Bacon's memoirs, and he's writing it down in like a journal, and he's reciting the journal to us, the audience. And number 11, we've got the 1994, I believe, 1995, excuse me. It is the Hugh Grant, Julianne Moore, Robin Williams comedy directed by Chris Columbus from Mrs. Doubtfire fame. It is 9 months. Yeah, about Hugh Grant and Julianne Moore. They are dating. They're a dating couple, and of course Julianne Moore is on birth control. But then they find out that birth control doesn't always work, and so she reveals to Hugh Grant that she is pregnant with his child, and then the romance starts bubbling up. And of course, in the meantime, Hugh Grant also plays kind of this immature guy. He's not really typical of a movie like this. He's not ready to really settle down and commit to being a father yet, but he knows that she's not going to terminate this pregnancy. She's already in love with the baby, and of course, yeah, and the whole comedy ensues about him trying to mature himself and be a man for once. So number 10. This movie I saw in the theater when it originally played in 1994. It's not a movie that you really associate with fathers. It's been kind of again another forgotten movie. But if you were in the 90s, you would remember this movie. Um, yeah, of course. What is he talking about? Well, this is a movie that fatherhood does play a key part in this film, and it is Disney's Angels in the Outfield, starring Danny Glover, Christopher Lloyd, and Tony Danza, and a young, like a 12-year-old Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this film. Now, in case you don't know the premise of this movie, it's about this child, this 12-year-old boy who's been given up to a foster care because his dad doesn't really want. His mother has died. His father doesn't really want to take care of him, and so he just leaves him to this foster home, or a temporary foster home that's pretty close to uh, the home of the California Angels. Then the California Angels, it's now the Anaheim Angels, but which is the kids' favorite baseball team. And at first they start sneaking into the baseball games, and the Angels are one of the worst teams in baseball at the current position, and the kid prays at night to God that he would help the team win and also give him a dad, or bring his dad back to where his dad would come pick him up and be with him forever. Well, then what happens is there's a day that the kids can get in for free or whatever, and or it's a reduced ticket price. But anyway, the kid shows up, and what he sees is real angels coming down and helping the team win the baseball game. And this keeps happening over and over, like typical Disney fashion is that, once they find some good luck charm, it keeps working and working and working till the championship game, where they're forced to actually give it their all. And then at the end of the film, I'm not going to spoil, but entirely everything. But Danny Glover develops a relationship with the kid. Of course, Danny Glover plays the manager of the team, and he's a short-tempered, kind of foul-mouthed manager. Now, they don't depict that. They don't depict too much foul-mouthed in the film because it's only rated PG by Disney. So a lot of here is a lot of gibberish in the background, and so he learns how to control that, be loving and caring, and then also want to take care of this kid. So, needless to say, you can see where this film's kind of going. So yeah, I encourage you to check it out. It's Disney's Angels in the Outfield. I'm not sure if it's on Disney Plus. You may want to poke around if you have your Disney Plus. Okay. Number 9. This is kind of a thriller movie, sci-fi thriller. Came out in 2002, I believe. And it was 2002. This was kind of a movie that it was a hit at the time. It kind of gets some flack now, but yeah, it was a fun movie at the time. I haven't watched this in quite a few years, to be honest, but it's M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. Yes, Mel Gibson playing the father of this family. Not only that, he's a former Episcopalian priest. So he actually does have the professional title of father, or he's released himself of that duty because of his wife being killed in a car accident. And but yeah, this is This is a film about fathers and their faith. I would say more than about the scary monster that's outside, terrorizing, the family, terrorizing the family and the farm. But this is really about, fathers and their faith, and because he realizes, yeah, he's there to protect his children and what's left of his family. He's lost his wife, but he still has his two children. And at some point in time, he's on the verge of losing everybody, and he realizes that, I can't do this on my own. I need, a higher power to help me along with this. And regardless of what happened between, he basically, Mel Gibson's character basically is angry at God for taking his wife, and he's held bitterness towards God throughout the entire film until the last moment where he realizes that he's on the verge of losing his entire family and that he can't do it by himself. He cries out to God, even though it may be in anger, to help him get through this situation. Number 8. If I was, this one's kind of odd because it's really not about the father being the father, as it is, what would you do if you knew your father when he was your age? Would you hang out with him? Would you be friends with him? What would you do? And of course, they add in a little bit of Jeopardy in this. I'm going to hold up the whole box set, but it's the first film, Back to the Future, starring Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd in the Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis classic about, a kid who travels back in time and almost destroys his parents meeting up. And of course, that's where the Jeopardy is that he meets the school bully and intervenes with the parents meeting up and never getting married, ever having kids, and yeah. So yeah, Back to the Future. Number 7. I mentioned this on my favorite animated films of all time, and it's 1940's Pinocchio. This is a father-son story because it's really more from the puppet's point of view, but Geppetto is a father. Actually, he's an old man wanting to be a father, and so praying and wishing upon a star, he becomes a dad. And so, yeah, I would put Pinocchio on here. So, yeah, there you go. Number 6. I mentioned 9 Months. This is a film about fathers being divorced. It's probably one of the funniest movies ever made. It's certainly one of my favorite Robin Williams movies. Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show, like, if your serious devotion to your children, like, even though you may be divorced and there may be a law that is holding you from your children, this just goes to show what some people will do to extremes to be next to their children and to see their children every day. And so Robin Williams here, he's an actor. He's actually a voiceover artist in the film, and he quits his job and throws a birthday party for his son. That because the son because technically the son had gotten some poor grades on his report card, and so mom said no birthday party. Well, the dad throws this massive birthday party and destroys the house basically, and ending the marriage. But obviously there was probably some stuff brewing over time that the film doesn't tell you, that Sally Field wants out of the marriage, and then so forth. But then he calls upon his brother, who's a special effects makeup artist for films, to make him look like a woman. And so, thus being Mrs. Doubtfire. Number 5. I also mentioned this one in my top animated films of all time. And this is definitely a film about, following in your father's footsteps and legacy and your family, and you cannot deny who you are. This is more from the son's point of view, or the child's point of view, and it's The Lion King. Enough said. I know I've already talked about it. It's one of the greatest animated movies of all time, one of the greatest movies of all time. Great music, great animation, great story, great actors. Yeah. Let's see. Number 4. This is one of the all-time greatest movies of all time. I would put this character, as a matter of fact, the AFI has put this character as one of the greatest movie heroes of all time. And he's not a superhero by any means, but what he stands up for and has to put up with, and what his children see out of him, is phenomenal. And of course, living in these times right now with all the protests going on, between whether all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, or whatever, and removing of statues, of Confederate statues, I think this movie is more poignant than ever, and it's To Kill a Mockingbird. From, when was this? 1960. Doesn't say. It's 62. Okay, there, I found it. 1962. Atticus Finch, played by Gregory Peck, is I would say, one of the greatest movie characters of all time. And of course, what's interesting about this film is that a little bit of reality met, or a little bit of what happened on film happened in real life. I can't think of her name. Mary Badham, who played Scout. She played Scout in the film. She ended up losing her parents for some reason, I forget what, and Gregory Peck ended up taking her in for a little while. And she said it was exactly like Atticus Finch. And the author, Harper Lee, she said, because she was on the set one day, and she watched Gregory Peck perform Atticus Finch live while they were shooting the film. And then one day when they finished after a take, Gregory Peck went over to Harper Lee and noticed that she had a little tear streaking down her face. And Harper Lee said, "Oh, Gregory, you look just so much like my daddy." And so, yeah, it's kind of one of those. And in reality, I think Atticus Finch is probably one of the greatest depictions of what heroism is, what father is. And he, not only that, he's a single father in the film, and it's just a great movie. And I would show this to your kids. I mean, because forget the fact that it's in black and white. Whether a movie is in black and white or color has nothing to do with how good or bad it is. So I would say show your kids To Kill a Mockingbird, and even still read the book. So number 3. This is probably one of the best father and son ordeals ever put on screen, because it's just so fun. We came to know this character through 2 other movies, and in the 3rd movie he brought along Dad. What am I talking about? Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You got it. With Sean Connery playing Indy's dad. Junior, come on. You can't beat that. Number 2. This is a faith-based film, and this is a film I think really challenges fathers, to be who they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be courageous. So it is Courageous, from the guys who made Fireproof and Facing the Giants and all that. Yeah, Courageous. And I think this is a film that still needs to be shown and talked about, because the fatherlessness is a major problem. I mean, if you look at statistics of fatherless homes, look at the crime rate and look at all the problems that they have, because without a real father in the family. That's the importance of 2 parents, a father and a mother. But yeah, I even saw this one in the theater. It's, forget that it's a faith-based film. Forget the fact that it's cheaply made. It's still a great movie, and it needs to be shown. It needs to be talked about. Now, there's one film I like to throw up here, and it's an honorable mention, because a lot of these movies, is more father-son, but we can't forget about the daughters. And so, as an honorable mention, I'm going to throw up Interstellar, because it was important that it's important to mention that Matthew McConaughey is actually a good dad in the film. And so I know I said that father's leaving. I was talking more of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, with Richard Dreyfuss leaving and going up on a spaceship and never returning. I was talking about those type of characters who will give up their families for their, really completely abandon their families for their dreams and obsessions. With Interstellar, it was more about he didn't really have a choice. It was he had to do it so that she could live, and in the story, he really needs his daughter to pass along the information to help Earth survive. And so, yeah, I would throw up Interstellar as the honorable mention. It would be number 13 on the list. But my all-time favorite movies about dad has to be this. It has to be about love, forgiveness, and what a father is to be, and how that makes you, how the role of the father makes you become an adult. Field of Dreams. Yeah. This has got to be, yeah, my all-time favorite movie about dad. Because what's depicted in this film is, yeah, the father and the son have a, you find out, have had a bitter relationship. Matter of fact, the son left the father out of anger and never talked to him again, even when he died. But the whole thing is about really forgiving your father, and forgiveness and love, and that, we love our dads, and, they're not perfect. And you find out in the film why the voice was saying the things that it was saying. Because at first, Kevin Costner's character hears just a vague phrase. If you build it, he will come. And they're all scratching their heads saying, if you build what? Who's going to come? Who are you talking about? But then later on, Kevin Costner starts thinking about his dad and who his hero was. His hero was Shoeless Joe Jackson, the baseball player. And he gets this idea to build a baseball field in the middle of his cornfield so that Shoeless Joe Jackson can come back and play baseball. Well, Shoeless Joe Jackson has been dead for several years. And so they do this crazy idea. He said, what if it's this crazy idea? I build a baseball field. And so he builds this baseball field, and it sits empty for about a year. And then when spring rolls around, there's a man standing out on the field. And it's Shoeless Joe Jackson. Then more ball players start to show up. They start having practice games on the field. And Kevin Costner begins to hang out with them and talk with them. And of course, every time they go into the field, they disappear. They fade into whatever. And then he hears another voice saying, says, ease his pain. And so he goes on this journey to find an author who wrote about baseball, played by James Earl Jones, and then realizing that actually he kind of kidnaps him, and then he hears another voice at Fenway Park saying, go the distance. And they have to go find another baseball player, and then they take him back to Iowa, to Kevin Costner's home in Iowa, to where he gets to play ball. And in the long run, some other events are happening. He's starting to lose his farm, and whatnot, and because he built that baseball field, and no one else sees it, and then things start coming together that it works out that he doesn't have to sell the farm. He doesn't have to do all this stuff, and it's there's the hope of baseball and how iconic that game is, and legendary and heroes. But the whole thing is about getting back to the Father. I'm just rambling about this movie, but the whole thing is about getting back to the Father, because those three phrases, those three vague phrases, are all about getting back to the Father. If you build it, He will come. So he builds a baseball field, so his dad comes back. Excuse me. 2, ease his pain. Forgive him. 3, go the distance, which means go meet him, go to him. And so, yeah, I just explained the whole movie to you, but yeah, it's Field of Dreams, and of course, I think my favorite line in the whole film is the last line that's spoken in the film. Because at first, when he sees his dad, he doesn't refer to him as Dad at first. He calls him John, and by his first name. And then at the last line of the movie, he says, "Hey, Dad, want to have a catch?" And so, yeah, and thus the forgiveness has happened. But yeah, Field of Dreams, that's my favorite dad movie. Movies about dads. So there you go. Those are my top 12 favorite movies about dad. Actually, technically 13. I mentioned Interstellar there. So, yeah, I hope you guys have a great Father's Day. At least call your dads and talk to them, and wish them a happy Father's Day. So from me to you, see you later.